All right. I made a couple attempts of making a video a while ago. Because, this channel gets ignored all the time. So I figured now that some articles are coming out, I said, you know what? Let me address my frustrations at the gun laws and where things are going in New Jersey. And there's multiple factors that I see that are just such an issue. Personally, I think that the gun owners in New Jersey are fucked. And there's not really much of a fight to challenge it. Although I did see that the New Jersey Second Amendment Society, in conjunction with the NRA, have filed a lawsuit, which I argued many years ago when it came to how Chicago was basically forced to recognize concealed carry without justifiable need, as well as recently Washington, D.C. Has to recognize concealed carry without justifiable need. And essentially both of these places have become shall issue states. The only last strongholds are essentially most of the New York, Northeast, New Jersey, New York, and then California, out west. And, there's obviously a inconsistency in terms of the interpretation of the law. And a lot of that, is based on where you live and, how liberal or conservative, your local, federal courts are. But again, that sort of inconsistency can't stand in the law. And, personally, I wish the Supreme Court would already make a decision on it. But I can understand some of the reasons as to why they wouldn't. Liberals want to leave it up to, it being states' issues. And then, you have your conservatives who also want to claim it's a state's issue. And then you have, the idea that, guns is kind of a different category, right? So, you got public safety on one end, and then you got people's rights and liberties on the other end, right? But, excuse me. But personally, I think that the liberals are losing the argument. And they know they're going to lose, which is why they didn't challenge the D.C. law, right? Because had it gone to the Supreme Court, had they pushed it, then basically at an earlier date and time, the concealed carry laws would have been recognized, and no states would be able to deny them underneath these sort of false premises. Personally, I don't even believe this whole thing to be a states' rights issue, and I've already stated that before. Because just like with Brown versus Board of Education, where black students were being denied a quality education after it was proven that they were not receiving a quality education due to the laws in the Jim Crow South, what happened? The federal government came in and said, hey, you can't deny these people, access to a quality, public education. So, federal government came in. Same thing. New Jersey, California, New York are denying people their Second Amendment rights underneath the false premise. Right? Smoke screening with public safety and all that. And, as we can see, these gun control laws have nothing really to do with public safety, because all they're doing is disarming the law-abiding people, and they don't really do much to address the criminals, right? So, example, Governor Murray has now, co-signed. He had a meeting today in New Jersey, and he basically reinforced or reinserted, which I personally think is a response back to the Second Amendment Society, since they want to push this whole issue of concealed carry, where, Basically, he said that, he's going to sign all the bills that Christie didn't sign, right? We got to have a 50 caliber ban and throw it in the destructive devices category because, all those drive-by shootings in Camden with 50 caliber, $8,000 rifles that you can't even stick out of the window, break yourself, fool. Guys just sitting there blasting each other with 50 caliber bullets, right? Costs damn near $3, per shot, might be more, right? The other thing is he wanted to throw up we're going from 15 rounds, which is already restricted, right? Because every other state, they can have as many rounds as they can fit in their handgun, right? Most handguns are about 17 rounds. Glock 17, M&P 9, 17 rounds. Most handguns, full-size handguns, are 17 rounds of 9mm. Now they want to go down to you can only have 10 rounds in your bullet. And again, this only applies to the law-abiding people who follow the law. Do you really think if I was a drug dealer and I'm in Camden and I'm already breaking the law because I'm carrying an illegal firearm with me, right? And I'm ready to shoot anybody, who's either encroaching on my turf or, maybe I'm a part of the gang that somebody else's brother got shot, so they're just looking for somebody wearing the wrong colors. Do you really think I care about your 10-round magazine ban? No. So it's like that's only going to affect the law-abiding people. So now, and it's like, it was so crazy. It's like these liberals in New Jersey, it's like they think that everybody has, the accuracy in shooting a handgun of Django, from Django Unchained, Jamie Foxx's movie, if you didn't see it, right? So like we can all fire a gun from the hip and shoot somebody's hat off, right? Not only that, but this false belief that you only need to shoot a person once and they go down. You have situations where people get shot multiple times. What was the rapper? 50 Cent got shot 9 times and he lived. How many times was it before he went down? Now, obviously, that was an assault and it was attempted murder. But I'm saying, just imagine somebody breaks into your home. How many shots are you going to fire from your gun that A, you're going to miss, or you may miss, and then B, it may hit the target but not do anything? Especially when you're talking about a large male. Or C, multiple attackers, which we've seen numerous times. You can go over there on YouTube on active self-protection and you can pull up the videos. And a lot of times attackers show up in, more than, groups of, 2 and 3, right? Because it's a force multiplier. So you only got 10 rounds in your bullets. So minus the bullets you miss, minus the bullets that hit the target but the target doesn't go down, right? And then on top of that, what if you have multiple attackers? So you shot one guy 2 times, you shot another guy 1 time, you still got another attacker coming to you, and who knows how many other bullets you might miss, right? And then, God forbid, you're in a situation where you have, an attempted robbery. Well, then again, in New Jersey, you can't carry anyway. So you're just fucked, right? Like that woman back in 2000 and I think it was 2001 or 2000, where she was getting off the Paco train and she was abducted and then murdered, right? Like these laws do not keep, New Jersey citizens safer. And then they keep referencing, mass shootings, right? And I know there was a mass shooting, it would be categorized as a mass shooting on New Year's. There was an autistic child that shot his family up, right, with his dad's RAS-47, AK-47, which could only hold 15 rounds maximum in New Jersey. But since they don't really make 15-round AK-47 magazines in New Jersey, that means chances are he probably only had a 10-round mag in that AK-47, because he couldn't have had a 30-round mag because that would have been a felony in the state of New Jersey. So most likely the autistic kid killed his family with this rifle that had only 10 rounds in the magazine, right? And, I've read reports, he kind of knew that he had done a bad thing or something, but it's just like weird. It's like, if you got a special ed child, right? And this goes to the conservatives that always want to run around and throw up personal responsibility. There's a case of personal responsibility, right? Why does your autistic child have access, to this firearm, with ammunition in it, right? Because I don't know how an autistic child knows how to operate, a firearm. Maybe he wasn't that autistic. Maybe he was, just crazy. Who knows, right? But it is the parent's responsibility to make sure that the child doesn't have access, to a firearm like that. That much I agree with. Now, do I believe that there needs to be legislation? Not particularly, but obviously the parents paid with their life, as well as a neighbor who I believe was at the house or something like that, so he killed his sister, he killed his parents, and all that. That happens. You're not going to be able to stop that, just like you're not going to be able to stop anybody from going out here and running people over, screaming Allahu Akbar, with their vehicle. We're not restricting vehicles. We're not saying everybody, every car needs to have a governor on it and no car should go over 25 miles an hour. I'm so sick of this nanny state garbage. But then what else does Murray want to sign? He wants to sign, so you got the 10-round magazine limit, right? Which now will make, everybody in New Jersey who has more than 10 rounds a criminal. Then on top of that, you have the, I love this one, the armor-piercing ammo. And if you go and you look at the definition of the armor-piercing ammo, like I'm saying to myself, I'm like, at least they're intelligent enough to only have it apply to handguns. Because any rifle round is going to go through level 2 body armor, which is what most police officers wear like a hot knife through butter. So, you don't even need an AR-15. They'll say, oh my God, an AR-15, it'll go through a police officer's body armor. Yeah, and if I had a Ruger Scout rifle, which is a bolt action rifle that shot any 223 5.56 Remington or 223 Remington 5.56 NATO, is going to cut through that police officer's body armor like a hot knife through butter. Even if they had level 3 body armor, which is hard-plated steel plate, from AR500.com or SpartanArmory.com, it'll cut through there like a hot knife through butter, especially if it's XM, what is it? Excuse me, not XM. It's XM 193 ball ammo. Anything going over 2,000 feet per second will cut through body armor, even if it's steel. Anything going over 2,000 feet per second will most certainly cut through level 2 body armor. And what is just so infuriating is when you look at the definition of how they describe armor-piercing ammunition for handguns, they started talking about, the bullet being tungsten and the bullet, having, steel core and, the bullet, being of a particular like a density or something like that. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, it's not about the weight of the bullet or even the density of the bullet. Speed is what kills body armor. Anything going really, really fast will cut through level 2 body armor. And you know what goes really fast? While they're so focused on these dense bullets and bullets with these, other type of materials as the core of the bullet, as opposed to just being lead, I'm like, copper jacketed bullets, right? And I shouldn't be saying this because this will give them ideas, right? But a copper jacketed bullet, like the Liberty Defense Plus P 9mm ammo, as Military Arms Channel has demonstrated, will cut right through a police body armor. Like they're sitting like 50 grain 9mm bullet will cut through level 2 body armor like a hot knife through butter. So you have people talking this, sort of 1980s, 1970s, ballistic lingo, who have no concept of, what they're talking about in terms of what they're actually trying to regulate. You know, they're running around acting like everybody has a FN-57 pistol, you know, with the special S designation ammunition that you can't even get. It's so frustrating, you know, to have to sit up in here and listen to this, you know, and it's not going to help anybody. You know, I don't know how many women have to get raped, or, you know, how many people have to get assaulted. And then what do they say? You know, you try to sue the state. They'll say, well, it's not the police's job to be your personal police and protect you. Okay, so how do you protect yourself in the state of New Jersey? Right? This is why the state of New Jersey is as heavily segregated as it is. Because the only thing you can do in New Jersey is move. And not live where there are poor people. A lot of racist white people say, oh, it's where there are black people, but then they don't want to make the connection to the fact that black people are disproportionately poor and been disproportionately poor since the end of slavery. That's not a coincidence. But I'm just talking about economically speaking, because I don't see any rich, wealthy white people trying to live next to the white people living in trailer parks either. Because poverty creates social dysfunction. Social dysfunction equates to crime. So in New Jersey, all people do is just simply move. Right? So you end up with these areas that are wealthy, right? And then you end up with these areas that are poor that have higher rates of crime. Crime is not evenly distributed all over New Jersey. It's not like there's just this like evenly, like it's like you're spreading butter on a sandwich. Crime is focused in some of the most poor and impoverished, lack of economic opportunity, poor education neighborhoods in the state, whether it's Camden, or whether it's Patterson, or whether it's New Jersey City, or whether it's Newark, or whether it's Atlantic City. These are the poorest areas in the state. And do you think that the Democrats, the liberals, are doing anything to address, you know, these issues? No. What they do is they focus on the tool, right? They focus on the weapon, right? The inanimate object that can be used for either good or bad, right? And then you got these fairies in the state, you know, these snowflakes that just sit around and just like have this false sense of security that they're going to be safe by restricting access to firearms by law-abiding New Jerseyans and making it the most difficult process in the world. And most of the illegal guns that are used in crime are coming outside of the state. So Ray and Pookie can get guns. Guess who can't get a gun to defend themselves? As Carol Bound found out, God rest her soul, right? Guess who can't get guns? That's right, you. Oh, well, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'm a law-abiding person. I pass a background check. Well, guess what? Go through the process in New Jersey to try to get a handgun, and you will see how difficult that process is. And then you will see how even restrictive it is. And then on top of that, you will find out how much the restrictions are even once you obtain the gun. Because now, oh no, you can't have more than 10 rounds. And you know what that's also going to restrict? It's going to restrict the type of handgun that you can buy. So the number of handguns that are currently being sold in New Jersey will be significantly reduced, which is the ultimate goal of the handgun, the magazine restriction. It's not really we got to stop mass shootings and we got to prevent them and stop them from being able to reload. Really? Really? So we go from 5. So that's 5 less rounds than what we're legally allowed to have in the state of New Jersey now. There's 5 less rounds, right? And the idea is, oh my God, that's stopping mass shooting. No, what it does is, so when you go to the gun store now, it's like, oh, you can't get that gun because it comes with 17 rounds, or it comes with 15 rounds, right? So you have to buy the handgun. Let's say you buy the gun online. So the gun gets shipped to the FFL. The FFL or the whatever you bought the gun from, they either going to, well, the chances are they won't. They won't send the gun to New Jersey without the magazines that are above the current 15 round capacity. But let's say we're going down to 10. So now they won't send you any magazine with the gun, right? Especially if you get a normal 9mm handgun, most of which come with anywhere from 15 to 17 rounds. So, unless you go and you get one of the manufacturers who have accommodated 10-round magazine limits, then essentially you'll get a gun with no magazine at all, and then you have to go and try to find, probably online, a 10-round magazine to now be added to the gun that you already purchased. So when you actually pick up the gun from the FFL, it won't come with a magazine because, again, the other states won't, wherever you're importing the gun from, they won't have the appropriate magazine with the gun, right? So what some people do is they go out and they increase, the size of the bullet. So they say, okay, well, I'm not going to shoot 9mm anymore. I'm going to shoot 45 ACP, right? If they have a full-size handgun. If they have a carry concealed handgun, usually those only come with 7 or 8 rounds, which is what most people would carry anyway. But I'm saying even in your home at this point, you wouldn't be able to have a gun in your home for your own personal defense of somebody kicking in your door at 3 o'clock in the morning with anything above a 10-round magazine limit. This isn't the gun that you're carrying on the street. No. This is the one that stays in your home by your nightstand. You can only have 10 rounds in that gun. Now, I don't know about you. If I can only have 10, I want 10 rounds of 45 ACP rather than 10 rounds of 9mm in a gun that could actually hold another 7 rounds. But since I live in the retarded state of New Jersey, I can no longer have, those 7 rounds, right? It's the shit is retarded. It's absolutely retarded. And it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. And then and don't get it twisted. That assault weapons ban is coming. That California style assault weapons ban is coming. Congresswoman or whatever her name is, not Congress, whatever the Jersey Congress, I believe her name is Nia Gill. She has an assault weapons ban, on her desk, just ready to come down the pipeline. So if you got an AR-15, you got to get rid of that too. Because, she's going to reduce the features down from 2 features to 1 feature, right? So that means no muzzle brake, no flash hider, no collapsible stock, which we already can't have, right? No, what do you want to call it? What's the other thing? What's the other damn thing? You got the magazine limit, so you can only hold 10, right? And then now it's gonna be one of them retarded versions of those guns that they got in New York. Or California with all the, the law ninjutsu that they try to do to get around, the law and whatnot. It's nuts. It's nuts. And this is what they want to focus on. And there's nobody online that's talking about it. There is nobody in New Jersey that's pumping out videos that's talking about it that I've seen recently. Nobody. I know the New Jersey Second Amendment Society is like trying to do their thing, but honestly, that's a pitiful organization. It's a pitiful organization. And I don't mean to disparage any of the members of the Second Amendment Society, but I'm gonna call it out for what it is. Okay? And the president, he's doing a lot. Like, he's like a one-man show. He's doing everything himself. But when they got the videos on YouTube of the Second Amendment Society, right? And the views are low. That's the first sign that lets you know that New Jersey doesn't really have a gun culture. And I blame that on pretty much every gun owner in New Jersey, who doesn't, bring other people into the gun community or the gun culture. And there's a lot of racial tensions going on that nobody wants to discuss. Because when you look at the New Jersey Second Amendment Society and you look at the audiences when they have these meetings, that's not a diverse coalition of people. It is old white men. That's it. That's all that's there. Old white men with their gray beards and their gray hairs and their big bellies. Where are your sons at? Where are the young white men at? Right? I'm not stupid enough to sit there and ask, where are the young black men? Right? Because I already know that you all, look at them with contempt and fear and superiority. Right? But I'm saying, there's some NRA people that I've tried to talk to about the issue. And basically, especially when it comes to African Americans, and I had to agree with them, because the fact is that African Americans, we have our own issues with the whole, gun violence and everything. Most of the gun violence in America is the result of inner city violence, right? You got the narcotics trade, you got gangs, right? And, I personally tie all that back to white supremacy. Oh my God, he said white supremacy. I'm flagged down on this video. I was agreeing with him on everything he said up until he said white supremacy. Right? And I've already talked about that in numerous videos. Lack of jobs, lack of opportunities, white flight, after the 67 riots. You see this in Camden. You can go on YouTube and you can pull up the videos, right? If you talk to most white people who are 70 years old, who, live in the state of New Jersey, they'll tell you, they'll when you ask them, hey, where'd you grow up? They'll be like, oh man, I grew up in Camden and Federal Street. You're like, what? You grew up in Camden on Federal Street? That's the hood, right? And then, no, it wasn't that way before. It wasn't that way until you had the 67 race riots, you had white flight, you had, the mass exodus of factory jobs, manufacturing left, and there was just nothing there. You can see the empty, abandoned factories even to this day. Just these big, giant brick and mortar buildings, and they're just empty and they're vacant. And then came the 80s, and then came the CIA dumping drugs in the black community. Tom Cruise just did a movie about this, right? All that Iran-Contra-ing and whatnot. You can also look up Michael Rupert, who died, who was the guy that made the documentary Collapse, where he was talking about the financial collapse and how societies are predicated on infinite growth and whatnot. He committed suicide in, I believe, a couple years back. I forget when he actually committed suicide, but he committed suicide. I could dive into Richard Aoki, who was a CIA informant or FBI informant. I believe he worked for the CIA, who infiltrated the Black Panthers, who were, like Fred Hampton, focusing on black people's personal responsibility and fixing up their own communities, which is what black people get bludgeoned to death with coming from the far right. But when they were actually trying to do that, they were undermined by the federal government, right? Because self-sufficient black people, my God, you can't control them. What would they do if they were in the position to be independent of our tit? We can't have independent black people as much as we run around and bludgeon them to death with arguments of personal responsibility. No, we just want them to stop complaining. Right? We want them to stop playing the victim, even though we victimize them. We don't really want them to be self-sufficient, because, my goodness, if they're self-sufficient, then that means they can compete with us in the global markets. Right? That means that they could saber rattle. That means that we'd have to give them a seat at the negotiating table, and they can say no to us like North Korea and tell us to go fuck ourselves. No, we can't have that. We must keep them dependent. Right? But I'm just saying, there's no, it's like, I don't know how to get the message through to a lot of white men. And I'm like, what would be an unstoppable gun lobby or unstoppable gun coalition if you actually had black people and white people on the same page when it comes to, that sort of liberty and defense. But there's an issue because of, we're at odds with one another, right? White people think that police officers are their best friends until they got a tactical knee on the back of their neck. They run around telling black people they need to trust the police and, how dare you question government officials. Meanwhile, they stockpile guns and ammunition against the very government that they claim that they don't trust, right? And they fear tyranny all the damn time. Then you got the liberals running around telling black people that, the cops are racist, and then turn around and say that, those same racist cops, they should, allow to, that they should put their safety and security in the hands of the, predominantly white police officers that, are, so racist. It makes no sense, right? So, like, as a black person, you just kind of feel like you stuck between a hard place. You look over to the right, they all think that you're criminals. They see any young black man with a gun, and they're like, "Oh my God, clutch the pearls! He's going to rape my wife!" Right? Then you go over and you look at the liberals and whatnot, and they're running around, stoking fears and shit in you, and then telling you, we have your best interest at heart when they really don't. So for the woke black people, we don't trust either one of these motherfuckers. But there's way too much of a lack of understanding. There's way too much of a cultural divide. There's no real dialogue. There's no real discussion. Even when it comes to, the predominantly white, gun community, they co-sign black people being pro-gun and everything, but they want the perspective of being a black person that's pro-gun. They want to control the narrative of what the black person says and how the black person really feels about, the Second Amendment or America or law enforcement and things like that. And we have a completely different history. So even though we may both agree on self-preservation and self-defense, right? From oftentimes, the same enemies, right? I got to worry about, the guy in the hoodie, standing behind me at 2:00 in the morning while I'm at the ATM. Let's face it, nobody really goes to the ATM at 2:00 in the morning for anything good, but I'm just saying, let's just say I'm at the ATM for whatever reason. I'm worried about the guy in the hoodie just as much as you are, right? But again, there's this sort of constant boogeyman, that is exclusively the black man in a lot of white gun owners' eyes. If they think of somebody breaking in their home at 3:00 in the morning, they think it's going to be some black guy in a hoodie. When the reality is with this raging opium epidemic that's ravishing the white community, the person that's running into your house looking for something to pawn is most likely going to be white. The bullet that you put in somebody's ass is most likely going to be somebody white. But again, it's not going to be interpreted, especially if you live in a predominantly white area. Black people don't even live around you, especially in the segregated state of New Jersey. They don't even live around you. So who do you think you're going to end up shooting? Who's trying to crawl in through your basement window? So it's just there's just an intellectual dishonesty when it comes to just the whole conversation, about the whole thing, But I wish there were more. I mean, there's some. I wish there were more black people who were having discussions about self-defense and the Second Amendment and being able to clean up their own communities, despite all of the racial and economic issues that we face that are coming from the outside are negatively affecting the black community. We still got roaches within the black community that have to be tackled. Every community needs its own enforcement arm. And right now, the black community, black matriarchal, single-mothered black community doesn't have an enforcement arm. So again, we look at guns a different way because, with all these fatherless homes, guns in the hands of young black men is not for the preservation or maintenance or defense of an intact, thriving, patriarchal black community. It is, associated with gangs and young black teens running around shooting at each other, because they're gang affiliated. So that's part of the problem as to why you say gun in the black community. They're like, oh my God, gun? What you need guns for? I'm voting Democrat, right? That's part of the reason why, right? Where in the white community, there's more fathers in the home, it's more patriarchal, and as a result, you have more fathers that take that role of, defending their community and their household and their family and their children and yada, yada, yada. So there's more of we're defending, our community, our intact community. You got more men that have something to fight for. And there's a direct correlation between black men being unemployed and underemployed and not being fathers in the home. And then to all the white people out there who don't get why that's a problem and why you should care, fatherless homes create dysfunctional sons. Dysfunctional sons spill out into the street and commit crimes, and some of that crime is inevitably going to spill into the white community. But again, it depends on, what type of white person, you're dealing with and you're talking to. You got the muhaha white folks that, they want, the black community to basically cannibalize itself, and they think that it's a good thing, and this keeps them on top and then keeps, all the Negroes at the bottom. And then you have the other people, who really want the crime to stop, but they don't really fully comprehend, what are the components of what creates this sort of situation, and I look to them and I say, you should care, because some of this is going to spill, into your community. It's inevitable, especially with the disparity in terms of resources. Like if I was a black criminal, why would I want to rob other black people who don't have shit? Why wouldn't I want to rob, a white person who's driving past me in a 3 Series BMW, and there's more of them who are living like that than black people? So when white people jump up and they want to scream, why isn't this a hate crime? Because it's not a hate crime. It's an economic crime. You got too much of an economic gap between white and black, for, you to be able to rule out, that it was, a hate crime, not an economic crime, but a hate crime instead. I hate when people try to come with that angle as well, trying to, act like there's this even, equal duality between, blacks committing crimes against whites versus whites committing crimes against blacks, and that everybody's got the same motive. And, if a white person does something to a black person, that a black person who's doing it to a white person has the same motive, like it's a reciprocal fraction. I'm like, no, that's not the case. We saw that with the Short Hills Mall when the guys robbed the guy for his Range Rover at the mall, and then, abandoned the vehicle in Camden. No, excuse me, not Camden, Newark. They wanted him for his Range Rover. He was driving around in an $85,000 automobile. It wasn't because he was white. It was because he was driving an $85,000 automobile. But I can never make any of these videos without talking about race, because it's nobody talks about it. Everybody just wants to be, oh, can we focus on guns? And I don't see anything changing without getting that big fat, pink elephant out of the room. And it's not gonna get out of the room unless there's some sort of common ground and some sort of understanding, between, black gun owners and white gun owners. Because I mean, and I don't know why the gun lobby doesn't care about this, because if you really look at why you have this sort of issue with guns, that's not what I want to say. Why you have this issue with gun control in the state of New Jersey or any of these blue states, it's largely because of black people are what? Voting Democratic, right? If the Democrats didn't have the black vote, then a lot of them wouldn't get into office, right? But yet there's no outreach, from the right, or outreach from, the gun community, right? And I'm saying this from the standpoint of giving you all the benefit of doubt and saying that you all aren't racist, right? I'm saying this from the standpoint of giving you the benefit of the doubt and saying that you're focused and your goal is for the freedom, of access to firearms, right? Because that's what the Second Amendment is really about. It's about accessibility, right? So I'm saying if the group that is voting against accessibility to firearms is predominantly the black community, well, then you would think that there would be need to, hey, black guy, come over here. Can you explain to me why you all keep voting Democrat? And obviously the other issues will come into play and whatnot in terms of economics and whatnot. But I'm saying, especially when it pertains to the Second Amendment, like there's no white people who are saying, hey, black guy, right? I understand. Actually, what's funny is it's not even really black men who are voting Democrat like that. It's the black women, right? So there's also a conversation that has to be had with black women, especially as it pertains to firearms, because all their sons are out here killing each other, and they care about, well, I don't want my baby getting killed, so yeah, get rid of the guns. Right. But then we also have this hashtag Me Too, where women are talking about being raped and everything else. And again, nobody's coming to the women saying, hey, you have predators in your community. Here's some classes to learn how to defend yourself. Have you ever considered how to defend yourself? Right. Like, I believe it was Shaneen Allen, one of her relatives, that introduced her to firearms. But I'm saying firearms is mainly a white guy thing. And there's no catering to the black community. There's no, hey, black guys, we see you got a high crime in your area. You ever think about taking up arms to be able to clean up your area, since the police aren't doing that fantastic of a job? Not only that, but you actually know what's really going on in your community, as opposed to the police to come in there indiscriminately bludgeon people over the head with stop and frisk and everything else, where people start feeling profiled. They start feeling, the racism and all that other stuff. Hey, black guy, have you ever considered joining the NRA? That does not go on. That does not, there's no outreach. There's no nothing. And my attitude on this is, I'm like, you got to meet people 50-50, right? Because from the black people's perspective, right, we look at things that are being said. Like, I go over to Breitbart. I read Breitbart's thread. Breitbart, if it has anything to say about black people, it's always negative. It's all those thugs, all the type of coded language and everything else like that. And and Breitbart is the gun community, right? Breitbart is like pro-gun and everything else like that, right? So I'm pro-gun. And I go over there and I'm like, yeah, nice to see that they're talking about the Second Amendment. And then I get to reading, and then they talking all type of sideways about black people. How do you think that makes me feel? You think that makes me want to show up at a meeting? You think that makes me want to go and, go to some pro Second Amendment rally? Right? There's a lot of black people in the black community that are pro Second Amendment. I wouldn't say, obviously, it's not as much as the white community, but there's a lot. But we don't feel comfortable around y'all. Straight up. It's because of the articles that are being written, what's being said, and then, especially, now with all the white nationalists and white supremacists running around, you got all these tiki torch guys running around. You got all these, white nationalists running around who feel empowered and emboldened, from your Richard Spencer followers to your Jared Taylor followers. That's a concern for us. If you're not a racist and you really believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and people have an inalienable right sent down straight right from God to defend themselves, then you should support any black person, wanting to defend themselves against racist and white nationalists who have basically come out of the closet in the woodwork. But see, I already know that puts a lot of white people on the fence, who they may not be necessarily racist, but they're most certainly biased, right? They find themselves, identifying or picking, with some of the sentiments, of the white nationalists, or, of the Jared Taylors or Richard Spencers, or, the Charlottesville types, right? Or law enforcement. Yeah, those people that always have like law, cops can do no wrong. You know, those type of people, like even when it's on videotape and the cop is clearly doing wrong, they're like, cops can do no wrong, right? Unless it happens to them. You know, like what you saw with the guy getting shot in Arizona, you know, with the cop telling him, you know, a whole bunch of conflicting commands. Cross your legs. Now crawl towards me. Do the hokey pokey. Turn yourself around. You know, it's like, really, dude? Keep your hands up in the air. Crawl towards me, right? It's like, damn, how am I supposed to crawl towards you and have my legs crossed? You know what I mean? And keep my hands up in the air. Like, how the hell does this work? You know, and the guy was clearly overweight. He went to go pull up his pants, you know, and he got shot, you know, 5 times with an AR-15. It's just insane to sit there and watch that. And the jury acquitted it, right? And so if you felt outraged about that, welcome to the club of exactly how black people feel when we sat there and we watched Walter Scott get shot in the back by Michael Slager, you know, 8 times as he was running away unarmed. And then the cop walks over and drops the taser on his body. Right? You know, if you felt some type of way about the white guy getting shot in Arizona, that's how we feel when we see the Philando Castile videos and whatnot. You know, it's not, you know, and look, I've gone into gun shops. I'll be the only black guy in the gun shop, and I'll be talking to the white guys in the gun shop. And I mean, like the small-minded shit that these guys say, you know, because they get around me, they're like, oh, an articulate black man. Oh, let me spew some of my Fox News viewpoints on you and see how you take it, right? Like I'm the guinea pig for them to, you know, spew their misinformation, right? And so they go and they start, you know, saying, I think Colin Kaepernick is taking a knee is disrespecting the flag. That's what a white guy said to me last time I was in the gun shop. He thought that was the opportune time was to bring up a conversation to me about Colin Kaepernick taking a knee and disrespecting the flag, even though no matter how many times the man says it, you know, he's taking a knee because of police brutality, and that's his way of protesting. And not only that, it was a veteran that told him to take a knee as opposed to sitting down, which is why he takes a knee. But even that's still not good enough. And the guy that decided to bring up Colin Kaepernick to me was a veteran himself. And I'm like, this is insane. This is insane. You know, but you know, this is what you deal with. You deal with a lot of small-minded people that, you know, they lose sight of, you know, the goal. You know, and again, like at that New Jersey Second Amendment, don't even start. Oh, we had one black guy, one fat, bald black guy that was up there. And even he had to stand up there and make jokes about basically him being black and him being out of the norm of the type of people that you would see at that event. Right? I mean, this is why, you know, the right is, you know, I understand that the Democrats played identity politics and, you know, it made a lot of white men resentful. But I'm saying for the longevity of the conservative party and, you know, gun rights and all that other stuff, they're going to have to diversify their shit. And they have failed to do that. You know, I mean, think about it. Like, how do you sustain a Second Amendment society, right? And all of the members of your Second Amendment society are over the age of 55. Probably in the next 10 to 15 years, more than 70% of those individuals are going to die of, you know, coronary artery disease or emphysema, COPD, or, you know, kidney failure from, you know, diabetic nephropathy. Like, what are you going to do at that point? Right? Where's your young? I'm saying even young guys. There's no young white men at any of these events. None. It's all old white men with big pot bellies. You know, ain't nothing tactical about them. You know? Those are the cops that scare me. Fat cops. fat white cops. You know why? Because they'll shoot you. They don't run. They run out of breath. Those are the ones I worry about. You know, the in shape cop, you know, he'll be like, don't run, you know, he'll chase you down and whatnot. But them fat cops, you know, those are the ones that are the lazy ones. Those are the ones you got to worry about as a black man, you know. Right? This is where the white people say, well, why are you running? Why don't you comply? Right? They'll jump up and say that. Right? But anyway, I hope that the national reciprocity goes through. I hope that the Second Amendment Society deals with this whole concealed carry thing. But I mean, it's the problem in New Jersey is the gun culture. Like, there needs to be discussions. You need to invite the opposition in the room to these sort of discussions and have an intellectual debate with them, because they will lose intellectually. And people are always listening, you know, as opposed to, you know, just the same old, and the Second Amendment rights and blah, 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 and, you know, guns and it shall not be infringed. That's not enough. What needs to happen is you get the moms demand action against guns and everything else like that. And then pull them in and talk to them about, you know, how do you feel about this hashtag Me Too movement? Yeah. Okay. All right. How do you feel about women being assaulted and accosted and everything else? Oh, okay. Yeah. Have you ever thought about, you know, women being able to defend themselves? Yeah. Have you ever heard about Carol Bound and, you know, how she was murdered by a stalker and, you know, she filed for a gun permit and didn't get it. And even if she did get the gun permit, since New Jersey is only May issue, she wouldn't have been able to carry in New Jersey, since it's very highly unlikely that she would have been able to defend herself. So, and, you know, she had the cameras, she was stabbed in her driveway, but it would have been illegal for her to have her gun on her in her car, on her person, to be able to defend herself, as her killer came up with a knife and stabbed her to death in her driveway. How do you feel about that? Right? But no, like there's none of that, right? Or talking to, you know, the young black women in the black community, or talking to, you know, like the Shanine Allen types, or talking to young black men and whatnot, who, you know, their only crime is being born to a single mother and being poor, you know, and living in a bad area where there's lots of drugs and there's lots of crime, right? Like, if anybody needs a gun more than anybody to be able to defend themselves, it would be people who live in a high crime area, right? You know, or even talk to, you know, some of the more upstanding men in the community and say, hey, you know, why do you keep voting Democrat? You know, you can't defend yourself. You can't do this. You obviously have identified, you know, the criminals in your community. I mean, any white person saying that black people don't discuss or address their own problems, you know, with all the numbers of the videos on YouTube about black people addressing, they've obviously never listened to any sort of black conversations, you know, about these problems, right? You know, or they don't care, which I think the vast majority don't care, right? They don't care to understand, you know, any of these problems. And so, you know, it's just there's just zero communication. And in my opinion, people are not reaching out to the people that they should be reaching out to try to change opinions. You know, that's the only way that it's going to turn around in New Jersey as it pertains to the guns. You have to have people who don't, you know, will basically stop voting, you know, left, right? You have to have a more pro-gun legislature. And I'm not even saying that legislature has to be, you know, red or conservative. It doesn't have to be. There's blue pro-gun Democrats who live out in states like Montana, you know, and West Virginia. Those are pro-gun areas, but they're also blue. So when you look at what the issue is, it's not really blue or red. What it is does your community have a gun culture or not? Because obviously in those other areas, the blue people agree on guns, but they don't agree on other policy issues, right? They don't agree. They agree on, they don't agree on, what is that? Pro-life. They don't agree on build a wall. They don't agree on not having a livable wage. They don't agree on any of those things, but they love their guns, right? So because of that, Democrats in those states have had to change their tone on guns. Otherwise, they'd be out of a job. So they got to be blue on everything else, but red or conservative on the gun issue. Now, I mean, that's, way far out there for a state like New Jersey. But what I'm saying is, there's no gun culture in New Jersey. There's absolutely none. Not even a self-defense culture in New Jersey. And part of the problem is again, you have this situation where people have basically moved around and relocated to where, the vast majority of white people in the state of New Jersey, all these moms, all these soccer moms, that are coming out. Moms demand guns, action and everything else like that. Only black women that are in there, they come from, the inner city where, their kids may have gotten shot and they standing up there with the signs. But the white women that are a part of those moms demand action against guns, these are soccer moms. These are just women who just are like social justice warriors. They're living cushy. They're probably stay-at-home moms. Their husbands make, $75,000 and up. And they're just, we just need to get rid of guns. They've never been to a gun range. Nobody's ever taken them, right? Every woman I've ever talked to who has ever fired arms says it's the most empowering thing in the world. They are no longer a victim. They no longer feel that just because a man is bigger and stronger, that there is just nothing they can do, to prevent, some sort of ruthless attack. Right, like the videotape of the mom that was sitting home and the guy came in the house, black guy. They threw him under the jail. They threw the book at him. I don't know whether he was mentally unstable or what, but he just came in the house and just started whooping on her. Right. As a woman, I can imagine how vulnerable a woman feels in that situation. Right. And there should be conversations about women being able to defend themselves. And this is also the job of not just men who are pro-Second Amendment, but also women who, know about not being a victim. Like there's no outreach program coming from the gun community in New Jersey to create any sort of coalition, of diversity that goes beyond old white men. And then everybody keeps wondering why we now have a Democratic, House and Senate and, governor. And now, I mean, basically you get what you vote for. And every time that you hear somebody getting attacked or assaulted, there should be a conversation of, well, why should we care? Because again, you voted against your own ability to be able to defend yourself. Okay, this person was attacked in such and such a city. This person, they kicked in the front door and they got nothing to be able to defend themselves with. That's what happens when you basically sign away, your rights to self-preservation. That should be a part of the conversation, but no. They allow the Democrats, they allow the liberals to jump up and make these sort of fallacious arguments that, had we had stiffer gun laws, that criminal wouldn't have had a gun to be able to attack you with, as though they couldn't attack you with something else, right? Or as though a woman can't be overpowered by a man with his bare hands. Right? These are the type of the false arguments that the Democrats make, and people eat it up. They eat it up, and there are not big enough voices, there are not loud enough voices that are saying anything to the contrary. Again, the guy, I forget his name, but the president of the Because I remember it used to be the old white guy with the gray beard, and then he passed the torch on to the new guy. Why can't I remember his name? But anyway, he shifted the torch, passed the torch over, and he goes up there and he makes videos from time to time, with his mild-mannered self. But I'm like, y'all need some outreach. You need some serious outreach, to try to, change the culture, free self-defenses classes. The NRA needs to be, backing you, with their time and their money and their representatives, because New York and New Jersey and California, we're like the last, holdouts, in terms of the Second Amendment. And, they're going to be fighting to try to hold, these sort of states and make these states the basis of, gun control for the rest of the country. That's what it's been for the longest time. But it's pretty much all I got to say. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. It's just not good. It is not good, for New Jersey gun owners. I mean, it's just really, really bad. And it's not going to help anybody, because the vast majority of the crime in New Jersey is inner city crime. Yes, it's black on black crime. Because nobody wants to address the poverty. They don't want to address the poverty. They don't want to address the shitty schools. They don't want to address the lack of economic opportunities. They don't want to address deindustrialization. They don't want, they just want to write a whole group of people off and say, oh, see, it's because they're just that way, right? Completely ignoring the conditions of the environment that they've been put into, right? And how that fosters and, further facilitates negative behavior, negative reinforcements, right? And it just gets swept underneath the rug. And then the Democrats, they jump up and they say, look at this environment. Oh, it's just so terrible. Look at Camden. What we need is more gun control, right? And then the right jumps up and says, no, what we need law-abiding citizens to be able to defend themselves, right? But because it's Camden and the majority of the people that are in that environment are black who would need to be able to defend themselves, you don't really hear the gun community using that they need to be able to defend themselves argument too loudly. That's reserved for the white folks only, right? The white folks who in New Jersey don't even live anywhere near Camden, right? So then it gets argued that, well, I mean, you live in such and such Pleasantville, New Jersey. Or actually, there is a Pleasantville, New Jersey, and that's pretty shitty. Okay, not Pleasantville, but super awesome White Town, USA, right? You live in super awesome White Town, USA, and there it's a safe environment. So therefore, you don't need a gun to be able to defend yourself. Or I could have said, you lived in Princeton, or actually Princeton does have some bad parts to it. I don't know, East Windsor or something like that, right? You live in East Windsor. East Windsor is a beautiful place with plenty of big, more than $500,000 homes. What do you need a gun for, right? And then the white person will sit there and say, you're right. What do I need a gun for, right? So it's like based on demographics. And then you got the people sitting around waiting for a zombie apocalypse who, they can't come up with a better reason as to, why they need a firearm other than it's my right. Yeah, it is your right. You're right. But I'm more concerned about people being able to defend themselves and get rid of this false belief and this false sense of security of we need more gun control for public safety, when most of the criminal guns aren't even coming from inside the state. If you want to get a handgun, you got to go to the police station. You got to go through 3 background checks just to get a handgun permit to purchase. And then you can only purchase 1 handgun every 30 days. Right? So so the criminal guns aren't coming from inside the state. They're coming from outside the state. And again, the laws that are being created only affect law-abiding gun purchasers. They're not affecting actual criminals that are using their guns on people or using their guns on each other. So again, it's plain political football in the political agenda, and that's all there is to it. And I just wish that people, the people at the top, the brainiacs, or the people who claim themselves to be the brainiacs, would deal with the situation in a more tactful and intelligent way. Especially, when you look at how the Democrats handle it. They grab on emotions and heartstrings. And if we could only save one life, this is about common sense gun control. This is about keeping our streets safe, right? It sounds so wonderful, doesn't it? It makes you just get all warm and fuzzy inside, right? But the Second Amendment society, the gun community in New Jersey, even the NRA, has not really used the language, especially for areas that are in the Northeast, to reinforce a sense of emotional attachment to the Second Amendment, right? All those white folks out there in the Midwest, you say Second Amendment, they start saying freedom, apple pie, American Eagles, baseball, right? That's how they interpret it, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? You start thinking they were from like 1776, right? Well, in the Northeast, it's not like that. If you really want to resonate the Second Amendment in the Northeast, then you got to start talking about self-defense, being able to defend yourself and not being a victim. Not all this, from my cold dead hands. That doesn't resonate with people in the Northeast. What resonates with people in the Northeast is, shit, I don't want to get shot. Like, I don't want to get robbed. I don't want to end up like, that guy in Philadelphia who was shot by, the 2 brothers, for his Audi with his, daughter in the back seat that he tried to rescue, and then he got his head blown off. I'm forgetting his name right now, but I don't want to end up like that. So anyway, my battery's about to die, so let me end this video. So that is my video. New Jersey gun laws out.